Hey, well, I'm really excited here today to have Bill Rom from Baseball Lifestyle on. So, Bill and I go way back because Bill is a fitness industry, sports performance industry guy at start who made a transition to co-owning one of the most successful retail businesses in the sports world, Baseball Lifestyle. So, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. Can't wait to let Bill share his story. So, welcome, Bill.
Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk.
Man, so I mean, you and a partner who I believe you told me used to be a client started Baseball Lifestyle, which, as a guy who's a dad and a coach of a travel baseball team, lots of buzz around Baseball Lifestyle in the travel baseball world and the high school baseball world. And I'm sure it reaches way beyond that. That just happens to be where I spend a lot of my time. But man, can we go back and talk about your journey from the beginning?
Yeah, so strength and conditioning coach from Long Island. But if we go even further back, I had been a football player and got hurt, typical story, but I was less of, hey, I'm going to continue to try to live out a dream that is less and less likely every injury. So I pivoted. I stopped playing 2 years into college and I was like, I'm going to focus on business. So I went to school, studied business, kind of fell in love with that. But during it, to make money on the side, I was training athletes and that kept going. But my senior year of college, I was interviewing with a few consulting firms, Accenture and Boston Consulting Group. Um, and during the interview process, everything else, I'm like, I think I want to have my own thing. Like, I don't feel like waking up every day being in a suit is my vibe. And I didn't know anybody who had gotten into, ecom necessarily as of yet. It wasn't the same thing, when I graduated high school in 2004, you didn't even have YouTube really yet, right? So there were a lot of things that tracked and changed over time that just changed the landscape and the ecosystem. So as I was in my career, I had written for T Nation, I had done stuff for Elite FTS, some of those things. I wrote for the Aces magazine that they send out. I don't even remember what it's called anymore. I spoke at the NSCA Strength and Conditioning Conference for New York State. I did all these things, right? I was doing the build a persona online and be the strength coach guy, but I had a marketing background. And I remember when I was talking to you, right? The one of the things I remember saying to you very abruptly was, I feel like it's easy to grow a sports performance business. It's hard to grow a personal training business. And you laughed and you're like, it's way easier to get just Gen Pop to want to lose some weight than to be the guy who people go to. But one of my athletes at the time, he's a New York Jet right now, Jeremy Ruckert. He's the number two tight end, plays every game. I had one of my other athletes. He just got drafted by the Athletics. So my world there is not so far gone that I just still have athletes that I've trained since they're little kids getting into that. But Josh, my partner, he was one of my athletes, and I was always very matter of fact with my athletes. And I tell them kind of like, hey, listen, you don't have a shot at being a pro. Hey, you do have a shot at being a pro. And Josh was a kid who I was like, hey, if you were 8 inches taller, you'd have a shot, but you're 5'4", right? And he's like, well, Dustin Pedroia. And it's like, okay, sure. There's the anomaly. But you then have to be the best player in the entire state today at that size for me to even look at you and say, hey, that's a thing. And he was like, all right, that makes sense. Well, I have this Instagram account. Um, and I have, 800 followers and I want to start selling clothes. Could you give me some pointers on business? And that was the impetus of Baseball Lifestyle. Josh would come in to train. We'd work out for an hour and a half, do his sessions, and then he'd start working our front desk. And he would just sit there and pepper me, and he'd come in after school. And BL just kept growing and growing and growing. And he had an opportunity to go to Division II school on a scholarship. He turned it down to go to the local D3 school because it was 1,000 feet from my gym. and we could still run the business, grow it, do everything. Our first employee, the only person, it was Josh every day and my wife every day, running the business. And now, it has exploded out. We're deep into the eight figures as a business this year. We'll be a nine-figure business next year, and yeah, it's kind of exploded along that path. So that's the quick and dirty version.
So, when did you know this was more than a side hustle, right? Well, this was something that could transition you away from being a gym owner, and it was an opportunity for you to take that business acumen that you had and build something really, really strong.
So the first kind of moment where I realized that we might need to do something different was 2018. I packed up a 20-foot trailer and drove out to the College World Series to set up a pop-up store at the College World Series for the first time. And we set up and we had built lockers out of wood by hand, and we had hustled this whole thing. And the year before, 2017, um, we had done with no paid advertising, just organic social. We had done about $800,000, $900,000, and we were like, "Hey, this is a nice thing." Um, when we went there, multiple times the fire marshal had to kind of shut us down because we had too many people in our area, and we were flooded. And local celebrities were coming down to check us out. We were going viral on TikTok early because we were one of the first people on TikTok after in 2018. So there were a lot of like gamers and people who would show up, and we went there and we did a month sales in 7 days, and the amount of kids who wanted to take photos with Josh, right? Because the biggest thing that we sold, especially early in this, is, hey, 15-year-old has a multi-million-dollar company, right? Because talking about, the late 20s-year-old partner in the business who is making decisions on stuff and doing everything, not as sexy, right? But I love coaching, right? So I actually fought very, very hard against it even then. Um, and COVID was really what kind of forced me myself to move away from being a strength coach, because during COVID, the business then took another, jump up. And uh, my wife had started like doing some marketing consulting on the side. So we actually started an agency, and then we had a $1 million a year agency. And everybody's looking at me like, why are you still coaching when your athletes cycle out every 4 years? You're always having to sell, you're always having to do your two other businesses are way easier. What are you doing? And I loved it. Like, I didn't want to stop. I kind of was just like, lifestyle changed. My gym was shut down from, March to September here on Long Island. And in that time, I went into those businesses because I was like, I'm bored. I need something to do. And then they took over my life because they kept growing, and that kind of moved me from that. And then really um the last 6 months has also been just another level of transformative up. Some of the things that we've done, some of the people that we've worked with, some of the actions that we've taken in the past just have all aligned to kind of reset some of the stuff. And we're just it's an entirely new thing. So yeah, I would say 2018 was the first step, and then COVID kind of nudged me over the edge.
So, I mean, your your business now, baseball lifestyle, has made a few of these jumps that you've alluded to, and I've just from afar, I've seen you share some images on Twitter where there have been like these hockey stick kind of leaps. Can you talk about some of those and maybe the driver behind some of those leaps? Because I mean, it sounds like I think we picked up. You said, "Hey, 800,000," and then eight figure, nine figure, and these are big numbers for most of the people in the sports performance industry or whatever else. It's like the first number you mention is
Yeah,
a bigger number than
doing great.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So the to we that 2018 year we passed $1 million for the first time. So it was like, this big moment because you think, okay, that's amazing. And then you look at like the small business statistics nationwide, everything else, right? 10% of businesses ever are going to make $1 million in a year. So, you're already, once you hit that, you start getting that idea of, yeah, $1 million is great. Um, then yeah, two and a half, five, 10, and now we're deeper still into it. And this year one of the big things that happened this year, we for our back to school moment, the first day of our back to school, we did $1.5 million in one day. So it was our first $1 million week and $1 million day all kind of happened simultaneously. And I'd like to say, that it was this one thing, but it's all those stories that you hear all the time. There's a lot of great decisions that we made back in 2016 that we got benefit of in 2020. And then there's a lot of decisions that we made that other people didn't during COVID in 2020, where, we didn't take it as, hey, all of this crazy growth, all this crazy stuff that's happening good for people online, it's going to go forever. A lot of businesses were like, let's level up, like we need even more. And I think that we were actually very diligent that while we were growing rapidly, we intentionally didn't grow as fast as we could. We said no to a few opportunities to go to national retail and do some things that we just didn't feel like we were prepared, and that there was enough momentum and there was enough underpinning to a company. And then, yeah, this year we have way bigger team. We have multiple warehouses. We had the right people. We hired a lot more A players, and I think that true A players really change the game for you dramatically when you have them. And we just got to a point where everybody was really functioning at a high level as a team. So Josh and I were like, all right, let's push and let's see how hard we can push. Starting in January of this year, and then January was we were up 1,000% year over year in January. For the year, we're up. I believe we looked at it yesterday. I think 720%. We'll finish, I would say, probably up 800% year over year. So a monster growth, everything else. And then the next jump is next year, where, about 2 weeks ago, we shipped out our first order to Academy Sports. I don't know if you know Academy all too well.
Have one about a mile away.
Perfect. So we're in right now about 50 academies. In February, we'll be in all 289 Academy Sports. At the end of the month, we'll be in Dick's Sporting Goods, about 25 of them. In Q1, Q2, we'll be in a couple hundred of them. So next year, by about, call it April 1st, we'll be in a little over 1,000 doors nationwide. And that now, completely changes the dynamics of what the company is, because, the rules change. I think that, it's the difference between, hey, you have one really, really great gym and you have the number one chain, fastest growing chain in the country. Probably what CrossFit felt like at one point in time, right? They were building it and people were growing and they had new accounts and new doors were open all the time. And then all of a sudden it was a cultural movement, right? And during that cultural movement, they pressed on the gas, deals with Reebok, getting CrossFit games, doing all this stuff, but the business became dynamically different. And I think that for them, and we all saw it as part of the industry, right? There were shortcuts and there were ideas and things that maybe weren't the best idea. So learning from my failures at my gym, right? Because I think I failed in large regard at my gym at being good at it. And some of the failures that I had seen along the path in our industry, I tried to use that to not make those here. So when it felt like a moment where, hey, let's do it, we pumped, and it's been rewarding. So hopefully we don't mess up with this big jump too.
Well, I've got great confidence in you. So I mean, you've obviously done great things in in e-com. You had a service business. I mean, you had an agency. Like, so what kind of things do you think have been, I guess, factors in your success in e-com that would transcend just e-com?
Yeah. So again, like I would say that a lot of the success that I have in ecom is because of how hard running a gym is. Right. So I would say that people talk about restaurants and how hard restaurants are. Um, if you run a performance training gym training athletes, I would tell you you've chosen maybe the second hardest thing to try to figure out because, you know, every place is like, yeah, we can make your kid throw 100 miles an hour and, we can make your kid run a 6'1" 60" and all, we can do all of it. 50-inch vertical jump, no problem. Your kid's 9, no problem. Be the best athletic 9-year-old in the country. So if you're not willing to play that game and you're like, hey, I'm going to build on reputation, I'm going to do this, it's hard because you got to also then dictate for yourself, like, where's your location? Like, who do you have? So, like, I trained a bunch of professional athletes, but like, I lived on Long Island. My access to professional athletes in a square mile radius is low, right? My gym at one point in time, we had like 7 kids drafted in one draft class, and for MLB. And I tried to tell my team and everybody, I'm like, guys, this is an anomaly. Like, this is crazy. Everyone here should be proud. And they're like, yeah, but our guys are like, 12th round picks. It's like, I really need you to just understand that we're coming from Long Island. It's not the best baseball place, right? You're not considered the top. There's so many things that go to then go and be able to say that one place generated all of this is amazing. So it gave me a lot of perspective then when we were doing this of, what were some of the hardest parts about running the gym? And then what were the things that I feel like were the backbone of what made me successful? And the quality of my education and my commitment to betterment there uh, was something where I felt like when we were at our peak and I was doing this, I knew best in class, world class level what I was doing. And that culture of me wanting that, all of my coaches now, every coach I think I have is either has their own gym now or is like an online celebrity coach. Like I've got one of my coaches is powerlifting now. They recently started, they do powerlifting stuff. He's one of the founders. He's one of my youngest coaches. He does an amazing competing in worlds and all these things. And it's like, okay, so like my coaching tree looks strong. And all of them, I think, still dedicate themselves because they're still in the craft. And how do I stay on the bleeding edge of what it is? So I think then when transitioning into ecom and transitioning into this, the amount of time I spend educating myself so that I know the landscape, the ecosystem, the best practices, the best in class, where I should be going, what's the right strategy, all of those things still play, right? So I think that the number one weapon that any business person can carry is being well trained in how to do it. And it's a thing that magnifies everything else. It's not just an additive part of you, it's a multiplying part of you. And again, I think that you know this because I've done individual consulting with you in the past, right? I've come to speaking engagements. I've done the perform better circuits, right? I've made friends with, Charlie Weingroff and Mike Ranfone and Don Saladino and a lot of guys who were, big, well-known people. Hey, how do I get to an event with you? How do we sit down and talk? Jim Ferris in Philly area. Thanks, bud. Um, hey, let's just talk shop. Let's get there. And I was always seeking that. Now, in the same regard, you said you saw some of the stuff that I was posting on Twitter. Really, the only reason I'm doing it is I want access to better education. And there are most of the education that's available is with the assumption of a user who looks like X.
Yeah.
Well, when you start not looking like X, you can't keep doing the same education. There has to be this progression upscale. And again, when I was just getting started, I was learning from everybody. And then over time, it's like, yeah, I should really listen to, Mike Boyle, Vern Gambetta. Like I should tighten his Lee Taft. Like, let me tighten this up. and really focus on these people. So by posting the things on Twitter, what actually happens is I get a lot of inbound now of people who are like, okay, so you're legit. Let's just get on a call, let's talk. And that value now cascades on itself because I can ask people questions like, hey, you built a $250 million company. Like, what was the hard transition point like? And I get game that continues on. So I think to in a very verbose way, the number one thing that transcends everything is continually working towards your knowledge, and not being rigid to one sliver of it. By me being well read across a variety of things, I see connections that other people won't. And it was the same thing when I was coaching, right? It's like, hey, how do I get this guy to throw faster and do stuff? It's like, oh, well, what are things that are counterintuitive that would help this person? And now you start testing out these different processes, and it's because you read something on a swimmer and how do swimmers maintain core stability in the water that allows them to propel themselves. Okay, so the resistance that a swimmer would have, if we applied some of those same things to a pitcher and he's now able to resist those same rotations, we can maybe generate better power. Okay, that worked, right? But you need to know a variety of things, and that's about exposing yourself to a lot of smart people, and listening. So,
And that's an episode by itself. Just that answer. That was great. That was absolutely awesome. So, I mean, you guys have grown like crazy. You've, I mean, my rudimentary understanding of it, I mean, you start out, I assume, with a pretty limited product line, a limited number of SKUs. And, you start out with organic marketing and a lot of like even grassroots stuff going and being on site. I mean, does it just have some sort of natural progression where there's a product line expansion? There's a magnification of the ways that you're going out and getting eyeballs on what you're doing?
yeah, so I think this is something where I feel really strongly about the decisions that I was saying before, decisions that we made back in 2016 we're reaping the rewards of now. And the number one thing, so Josh was 12 years old when I met him and was 15 years old when launched the Instagram. And he was 17 years old when we made our first $1 million, right? So I'll unpack in that just so people have context about what I made Josh do, right? Because I had a gym, I had my business, right? I had a gym doing anywhere between $50 and $80,000 a month in training, and I wasn't the most successful, but I was doing okay. Um, and what happened was we were one of the first Instagram accounts that were baseball oriented, and when Josh was trying to figure out, okay, what should I post? How should I do things? What's the organization? The very first thing I said is the name's Baseball Lifestyle. You need to show all of these kids what it means to live a baseball lifestyle. And at the time, posting more was a direct signal to Instagram to say, push this person. They're investing in us early. We should invest in this creator early. So we were the first influencer account. So when Josh got to like 25,000 followers, he's like, Bill, at 5,000, I wanted clothes. You told me no. At 25,000, let's do clothes. And we still didn't. We didn't start really selling anything until we had 100,000 followers on Instagram. And I know that that's not necessarily what every business person or any person who's running a gym or doing anything else can listen to, because you need to make money now a lot of these times. But for younger people thinking about starting out, I do think that building a case of people knowing who you are matters. And I think you consistently putting out something where you are a consistent brand of X, no matter what you're selling. If you're going to, sell equipment, you're going to sell coffee, you're going to sell creatine shoes, you're going to sell, your services. That you need people to know who you are. And I would always say that don't put expectations on your business too soon with too much stuff. be really, really great at delivering one format of something before you expand. So that's what we did. It was until we had 100,000, it was that. Then Josh and I were talking about, what do we buy first? And it was we buy stuff with our logo on it because no matter what happens, we can always sell stuff with our logo on it. But if we buy something that might be seasonal, it might be snarky, it might be this or that, like that fades, right? And that disappears. So we indexed heavy in hats and shirts and things that were just logo specific stuff. And then I would say that the next product that really meant a lot to us was we actually sold like baseball bat crosses. And we were the first person that like made that big. So we teamed up with a jeweler in Los Angeles, and we were pretty much his only distribution channel. And he had a real jewelry company doing, engagement rings and stuff. He was the son, his dad owned it, and he was like, "Hey, I can get this silver and I can get this metal and I can cast them. I want to start this ecom business." We grew that, and we were doing, even 3 years ago, we were probably doing $1 million a year in jewelry. And that product really helped us. Another one that really helped us is our baseball hat that's just got the seams on it. Our Buzz the Tower hat. That hat was a hero SKU. And a lot of the business was really built on like 5 to 10 products. And then as we grew and we progressed and, hey, we're doing millions of dollars, you need to offer multiple things for more people because you have a big enough market that now I need to feed more of these things, right? Same in the service business. Here's the service I provide. As you grow, there's ancillary services that either you can provide or you can send them to somebody else, right? The easiest one in strength and conditioning for me was I had a physical therapist and a chiropractor, two people that I thought were great at what they did, and I would source them leads, right? And I'd say, hey, I have a kid, I have everything else. Let me do some stuff. Now, over time, I didn't ask for money or referral money. I just wanted preferential treatment for my athletes. But it's the same thing, right? Like that service was going to be needed by my people. How do I then find a way of connecting it and plugging it in so I have still control over the process in some way? And then now, as we grow into a much bigger company, yeah, there's Facebook ads and email lists and organic search and regularized PR. We also, the number one thing we leaned into early was content. So making our own videos, making our own content, doing our old stuff. And again, my history of that is looking at the fitness industry, right? Why did I write for T Nation? Why was it a big deal way back ago to write for T Nation? Because if you wrote for T Nation, it meant you were the guy, right? You were Alan Cosgrove, Mike Boyle, John Berardi, right? The list of people goes on and on and on of once you wrote for them, it was like you were royalty in the industry. Perform Better would reach out to you, tell you to get on the speaker trail, and you're done. And I was like, oh, cool. So if I can just write enough and get to T Nation, I've won. It's the end. But that same process of generating content, generating things, how do we do it for a social media, organized audience, everything else? And today, everybody's like, oh, you got to make tons of content. It's all about content. And it's hard to beat us because all of the influencers in our sphere grew up on us.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know how much the influencer sphere for baseball guys right now, but like Dan Sarmiento, D-Sarm, big YouTuber. Kid was watching our stuff when he was young, right? Then professional athletes. Josh Young, third baseman from the Texas Rangers. That 2018, he met Josh at the Baseball World Series. And he was shaking because he was nervous to meet Josh. And like now he's got a ring, he's been a all-star and all this stuff. Same thing, we signed Max Clark to a deal a couple of years ago because his first ever interview he ever did on TV was for a local news network, and he was wearing baseball lifestyle in it. He's like, let me get set up. I'm going to put my short sleeve hoodie on. This is what I feel good in. And he did this whole thing wearing our stuff. And we look obviously shopping with us and doing stuff. Yeah, it only turns out that the kid's like, third overall pick, the hottest name in baseball, everything else. And like, if we weren't making the content when he was 11, right? If we weren't coming out with a product that fit him, when he was 13, we don't get to the point that we sign him to a deal we shouldn't have been able to get him for when in the height of everything. And that's just making good decisions over time stacked. But yeah, we can get deeper into marketing and things that we've done if you want to, but that's like a broad strokes of where we went.
Well, I mean, I think that some of that stuff, selfishly, the granular stuff, deeper into marketing is great for me, but I think that this, I mean, it transcends ecom, right? I mean, it's building on a strong foundation, not getting in too much of a hurry. It's no different than somebody saying, they're trying to open up gym number two, gym number three before gym number one is strong. Um, so I mean, I think that there's so much kind of fundamental value in what you just talked about there. Um, so so let's turn the tables here then for a second. I mean, I know you said, "Hey, I came to you for some consulting stuff later." Okay, so if you're talking to one of these guys on your coaching tree and they're starting a business, and whether it's online or offline, uh, I mean, where do you go with them?
Well, so right, so I had the marketing agency, and that's really what we did. So we had my favorite one that we worked with, just because they were really small when we came on, and now he's a bigger business. Is this product? It's called Vucrips. Don't know if you've ever seen a Vucrips. It's a more unique wrap on a bat. So we came on with RJ back in 2020. We started doing some consulting with him, and he was $140,000 a year business, right? And he was pretty much throwing tape out of a bag, and he was a legit, like, this was in the early days, and he was trying to establish himself, and the business wasn't really growing, and he had a good base, but how does he extend? So the first thing that we did with him, and the first thing I said to him then was shrink his product selection. I actually thought he was doing too much. He had bandanas and gloves and arm sleeves. And I'm like, dude, the name of your company is Vucrips. Just focus on your grip, right? And let's do all marketing, all positioning, all emails, all things about the fact that we have the best grip in the world, right? There's nothing that can beat it whatsoever. No one can claim that they have a better grip than you. And you saw that with, there's Naked Bat that does stuff now. You have Vulcan. There's Lizard Skin. I would tell anybody who listens to this, Vucrips is a better grip to swing harder and hold up for performance than any of those. But he did that. Now he's close to $2 million company selling a $15 item, which is super hard. But he's in Dick's Sporting Goods. He's about to go into Academy Sports. He's grown that business, and he was small. So the things I say to everybody is focus more early, right? Be great at something, right? And make that your position statement. Make that the thing that I'm going to build all my persona, all my stuff on this. Now, funny enough, as I'm saying this, I think the impetus for who said this was actually Bill Parisi, because Bill Parisi, I think, said he could do like a one-legged long jump or a long jump, and like it was the thing he could do that he could put up an elite level performance, and that would get him buy-in with his athletes, right? Because I might not be able to beat all you in a race of this, but I'm the guy who can long jump better than everybody else. So I think you got to find your long jump in that regard. Like what's the thing that you can surprise, and you can build a persona around this thing. The second thing is raise your prices. Um, Never, if you're worried about selling something more expensive, fine. But take the same thing you're doing, change it very slightly, and double or triple what you charge. And you'll be surprised at how quickly the thing you were doing, you kill. Right. And again, perfect example for me, young strength and conditioning coach. The guy who I had really learned from for 6 months total of time in person, He had gone to Athletes Performance and studied all the stuff, and he brought systems and stuff back. But I think he was interpreting it wrong. But he came back and he was like, "Hey, unlimited strength and conditioning, $99 a month group program." And my job when I came to work for him, right, I had a group of athletes that I was bringing into the program. I had done group training, and he's like, "Cool, I do one-on-ones and team. I need somebody to build a group training program. You come in, build it, you'll get rewarded." Blah blah blah. 6 months later, he left the company. They gave me the business to run it, and the very first thing I did was I doubled the price. Nobody dropped out of that one. Then once I felt like I had a good position 3 months later about my coaching and who was doing stuff with me, because I lost some coaches when he left, and I was doing everything, and I couldn't do everything and run it. Um, so once I felt good about my coaches, I was like, okay, um, I'm going to start a program that I run that's 4 athletes at a time, right? And instead of being, $200 a month, it starts at $500 a month. Unless you commit for a year, then it's like $420 a month, but still super expensive. And I had this first wave of, 6 kids who joined that program. And 3 months later, they were all monsters. And the dads would come in and be like, okay, well, we have this program and we have this program. And he'd look at the kids doing the one program and the kids doing the other program and goes, I want my kid to be a monster. And very quickly, the whole a year later, I bought the business from them. I was like, hey, I don't, you guys haven't paid me for 4 months, right? Like, I'm working for free because I believe in what I'm doing with the athletes. Let me buy it from you. I'll take it all over. I'll take on the rents. I'll take on everything. I'll buy the equipment. I'll do everything. And a year later, I didn't have the other program anymore, right? I wasn't doing the cheaper program, right? The cheapest that anybody was working with us at that point, because we had enough volume that I could mess around with the price a little bit. It was like $350 a month to train with us 3 times a week. You wanted unlimited training. It was $429 a month. But we got to the point, 120 athletes, teams. I trained local colleges. We did all the stuff. But the biggest piece of it was just not enough money. The coach who I was talking about earlier in this, who has his name is Matt Cronin, um, and he's a powerlifting coach. Matt was doing online coaching for people for $40 a month, and I kept telling him to raise his price, and he wasn't doing a good job. And him and his partner, who was another one of my coaches, Mike Baranis, uh, him and Mike didn't think they were like, no, we'll lose people. It's not a good idea. And then we had an intern who was a power lifter and he wanted to start a thing. He said, Bill, how do I do it? I said, cool. I'm going to write you sales copy to post on Facebook saying that you only have 3 spots. It's $150 and you have to be committed, right? You want to make sure that these people have amazing results. So you're going to over deliver. So if I'm going to over deliver, I need people who are going to over deliver back into me. And one of their clients contacted the intern and said, hey, could I join? So they had a person that was paying $40 a month for them. They were teaching this kid how to do it. But one of their people externally wanted to pay him $150 a month to do the exact same thing worse. And within a week, they changed their prices and everything changed. And both of them grew a much bigger thing. And now Matt doesn't coach in person anymore. He only does online coaching. I think he's got a roster of 30 to 40 people that he coaches. I think he's $200 to $300 a month, lives very comfortably in a cabin in Vermont and loves his life. And yeah, I think most businesses in general that I consult with, they think they have to do way too much. I was in the same boat. I was the same guy. I thought I had to do too much. I thought I needed all of these different things, and you don't. You should really just focus on pricing yourself to be premium, and focusing on your long jump. What's the one thing you do that nobody else does?
Outstanding. Well, I mean, this is a tutorial for me, so I'm enjoying the heck out of this. But I also know that I can't keep you on here forever. So
I'm clear till 12. So We got time
Well,
if you want a couple more questions.
then let's go. Heck, if I've got that, I'm gonna ask a couple while I have you. So, all right, marketing. What are you seeing? Um, what are you seeing be most effective in the marketing world now? And I know that's a broad question.
No, no, that's easy for me in most regards, and I'll do it in a way that I think that this is the way that everyone should have the fundamental aspects of what their business is. And Pat, I know that you'll agree wholeheartedly. Uh, Give away information on the internet, make content on the internet, build an email list, sell to that email list regularly as you can, rinse, repeat, right? And it is every single business, every single thing. I remember I went to like a smaller group and Eric Cressy kind of showed everybody his email list and the things that were going on. And I was like, this guy's got 100 and something thousand people who were active in his list. So yeah, when you see him say, hey, get my shoulder training for $79, it's just math equations, guys. 100,000 people, 10% of them open it up, 5% of them click over, right? And then 3% of them buy. Very modestly, every email he's sending is making him thousands of dollars. And most people hear that and they go, well, I don't have 100,000 people on an email list. If I had 100,000 people on an email list, I'd do better. I would say my email list when I owned my gym was a couple thousand active at any given time. And I would put every new person who even stepped in the door in the list, right? And you just regularly hit them with something new and exciting. And then lastly, the people who have paid you before, craft them out, right? VIP them and reach out more personal and deliver money, right? You laugh, right? And you should, because it's literally the playbook for forever now, for every style of business that's ever existed. And it's what we do at BL, right? The Instagram post or the Twitter post that I put out that we did $1.5 million in a day. We did $700,000 in an hour and 15 minutes. We sent one email. When we sent the second email, we were already sold out of certain styles. Can't do anything about like that. But that means that my email list did $1 million on a day. And it's because, again, since 2016, 2017, hey, how do we craft an email list that's great? So I used to make Josh give away all the free products that companies would send. Right? So Adidas is sending a pair of cleats. Great, we're giving them away. But Bill, I want to wear them. No. Do you want to wear them or do you want to grow your business? I want to grow my business. Right choice. Let's give them away. Right? And we just, until this day, we give away more stuff than anybody I know. Right now, if you go on our Instagram page, we're giving away a pair of custom sneakers every 3 days. Why every 3 days? Well, I wanted 30 days of engaged content leading into the holidays. So I wanted our Instagram account to get put to the top of the priority list for our ideal customer because our posting is regularly getting high engagement. And because it's getting high engagement, all of my other additional posts are getting higher engagement. Because they're all getting higher engagement, when I send these reels and things, Instagram's like, hey, this company's hot. Everybody's interested. Hey, new person who we want to have a great experience on the platform. Here's this company who's doing great stuff. And they now find me 30 days before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and they're in my ecosystem and they're in my sphere. And then because they click on that content, they engage with that stuff. My Facebook ads then present to them. And then eventually they're going to go and they're going to get to my website and a pop-up's going to come up like, hey, why don't you just join my email list? We'll give you 20% off your first purchase with this discount code if you sign up. And that person is now in my ecosystem. They're in my stuff. And it all starts with just, I'm giving things away, right? And now for me, the thing I give away is a physical product or an experience or a thing that I can provide. But for every person from a gym standpoint, like a free session, a free week, right? A free this, a free that. Just get the emails, right? And then we always talk about what's your upsell, what's your downsell, what's your post-purchase upsell. How do you add on additional services? What are other things that you can do? So we have our customer in the course of a year at Baseball Lifestyle, a person will spend or somewhere between 130 and 160% of their initial purchase over the next 12 months. So if I'm getting a person who's spending $100 with me, a year later they're worth $230 to $260. And I'm not repaying to acquire them. I'm not doing anything else. But that same marketing exists for every gym owner. And any other person who's listening to this who's like, hey, I'm a hairdresser. Hey, I own a restaurant. Like, what are you doing to build a local list of people? And 1,000 raving fans or whatever the white paper is, 1,000 people. You can be $100,000 a year business through your email list easily with 1,000 people who are the right 1,000. And I just think that everybody gets, again, distracted by, I'm busy with all these other balls I'm juggling. And I think the biggest part, and again, everyone listening to this, at my gym, I did too many things. Here, I did not, right? And the difference is that I don't do that thing anymore. I now do this thing. And so the lesson is I've done it and I know it. And I had two service businesses, right? I had another service business that was a marketing agency. And I didn't make the same mistakes. I routinely was reaching out to people. I was making content. I was talking about things. I was going to events and discussing things with people. At the College World Series, I was walking around and talking to vendors of new businesses, right? And then I was bringing over Vucrips and RJ Vukovic, who is the founder of Vucrips, and saying, hey, here's RJ. Let him tell you real quick about how I scaled his business by 10x in 18 months. And RJ would sell for me, right? Because I would grandfather a pricing in for him. And I'm like, hey, RJ, I'm charging 3 times what I was charging you when you came on, right? I need you to sell for me when we're here. I'd pick up clients. And that's the same thing with your athletes. It's the same thing with, hey, tell your friends, do this stuff. Nothing is different. It's just about how you think about it. And then again, kind of lean into your strength. I know what I'm good at. And I focus on doing marketing that I'm good at. And there's other marketing that's super successful that I'm just not good at. So I either hire a person who's good at that, or I just put a pin in it and I wait till I have the bandwidth for that to be something that I need to lean into.
So, kind of piggybacking that, and also looking back when you talked about focus. So, somebody's embarking on marketing, like one channel at a time, just master a channel.
Absolutely. Like Facebook ads have gotten a lot harder for everybody. But I would tell you that if you're doing the organic things correctly and you have the mousetrap set up pretty well, that somebody clicks on an ad, they get to a website, and the website pushes them to the right spot. If you have a very, very simple mousetrap that works, Facebook ads are still a monster that can make you a ton of money. And what I would say for everybody is, yeah, like the organic path is you got to make some content and distribute it on social media. You have to have an email list, right? And you have to have a website or some form of signing up and getting information that funnels that person to an appropriate spot. If you have that, then the next layer of marketing to me should only be one thing. And I think that for me, it's Facebook ads, right? I'll spend millions of dollars this year on Facebook ads. And the thing that I have spoken to other guys, because again, I still have a ton of friends who are in the industry, right? When I talk to them about how to more effectively run Facebook ads and what their biggest issue is, it's that there's nobody out there really talking about what's the current cost for a lead. So like I know what the cost, like an average cost per acquisition for my industry is. So I know my return on ad spend, I know ROAS, all these things. Like I have measurement of success. In the fitness industry, it's like, what should you be willing to pay? Because a lot of people, it's like, oh, well, I spent $100 on ads. I got 5 leads, nobody signed up. And it's like, yeah, that's not enough money. Like you had not even close. But that want and desire to take the risk on themselves to then do this platform to get to the other side of that feels super risky because most people in the industry, it's not your modus operandi. It's not what you're good at. But Facebook will find you everybody. And it'll find it at a cost that will make you money. You just need to know how to make your money as fast as you can, right? So if it costs $150 to get a person to sign up, that's fine if you can get that person to pay you $151 in month one, right? And then retain that person at an 80% retention rate over time, just keep stacking success now, right? And you then look at that and say, okay, well, if I have an 80% retention rate and it's $150 to get a person, I need to spend 150 times five, right? And I'll maintain $600 of those people the next month. I'll lose one of them, right? But I'm still plus 600. So now next month, instead of me spending $750, I can double my spend with the value that I have off of these people, and then that number compounds. But like understanding really quickly, it's like, man, I'm spending $3,000, $4,000 a month on marketing. That scares coaches. And I get it, I understand, but like that's that one little nuance of if you can break it from your brain that it's okay to pay for these people, it changes everything about how you grow and how you scale a business. We are my first year of sales at BL. We were 100. We did not run Facebook ads. In 2018, when we did $1 million, I only ran Facebook ads in Q4. So the first year I ran Facebook ads wasn't until 2019. So like now I'm 5 years, 6 years well practiced, and I spend millions of dollars. Why do I spend millions of dollars? Well, I make double, triple, quadruple my money back. It just takes time to compound, and you know that risk right there, I think, is something that people need to spend time, take the risk, and jump into a little bit, um, and go. And I know there's people who teach how to run Facebook ads, and I know that there's a lot there, and I think it's a lot simpler now today than it was a couple of years ago. There's a lot less you can do to micro target yourself in. So it's simple. Everybody should be running ads for their gym. Everybody should be running ads for their program, and it's the thing that would unlock your business. You know?
Well, I think you touched on something there that also is paramount. Is like, okay, you said spend $150, but then make 151 in month one back. I think that on average, follow up is pretty weak in our industry, right? Like they don't do a whole lot with the leads once they get them. So how have you been able to, you know, turn the investment into a positive ROI with follow up once you actually do capture a lead?
Yeah, so I think that again, easier for me because there's less of a somebody's got to show up every day and deliver on this, right? Once I've sold them something, I'm just trying to get them to come back and buy again. But I have no need for them to come here, right? I'm sending it to them. So I think that my game is easier. And again, that's why I'm saying to everybody out there who's hearing this, it's harder for me to have a seven-figure gym than it was for me to have $100 million company. So the thing there is we have just automations and follow up in a much more advanced mousetrap at this point that I've invested a lot of energy, time into understanding the entire process of where I need to go. I know my numbers of measuring, like I know that inside of 90 days, any new customer is going to spend 47% more. Well, so if I acquire, this is this exact math that I was just saying about only make $1 more. If I know on average that in 90 days, every single person I acquire today is going to be worth 50% more, well, I can spend 100% of whatever it is for them to buy because I'm going to make money on the 50% over the time. So then it's just about building a mousetrap with that understanding. So this is where again, like, and I know you've preached this, and there's a lot of people who have the same kind of thought here is tracking your leads, what percentage actually sign up, what percentage walk out the door, what's your close rate, what's your show rate. Knowing those numbers, it's the exact same thing as me. So if you know I get 10 leads, I contact all 10 within 24 to 48 hours tops, right? Now you can set up, if you do it right, you can set up an automated flow that as soon as that person triggers, that you send an automatic message to them within that 24-hour period. Now they have something to respond to again, right? That gives you time to get to the other side if you can automate part of these processes. But once you know your close rate, your show rate, all that stuff, the percentages, the cost per acquisition, it's just math. Just run the math over and over and over again. And again, the reason why I know that, to me, my career in the fitness industry failed was I refused the math I knew for the heart I had for people, right? Because I was training athletes and I was training young people. And so a thing for me, and I know it's a thing for you as well, giving back to these kids so that they have opportunities and they have stuff. How do I look at a kid who's from a poor neighborhood? I know the family makes no money, but I know that if the kid had structure and control, that I can change an entire family's life by this kid, instead of falling into some of the crap he could fall into. They're now, getting their school paid for and getting an education and having structure and meeting people that they wouldn't have met, and that being transformative to who they are. How do I charge that person 429? Right? And it was because of that was a bad industry for me, because I loved helping more than I liked helping myself. And that was a toxic relationship for me, right? I think if everybody recognizes that and they're stronger than I am, make a better decision that you're going to do the right thing for yourself. I never did, right? I would always do the right thing for the kid. And now I'm able to do the right thing for the customer today, right? Where I think we have exceptional customer service. We try to go above and beyond. We sold out last year during Black Friday. We sold out of our best selling product. I had to send out a message to all the people, hey, we messed up. We didn't buy enough. Early January, we're going to restock the product. We're going to overpay to get it produced fast. And we will have it in the first week. And I'm going to sell it for the discounted price today. And that January, for a 2-day stretch, I sold everything with the exact same pricing that I had that day, because I felt like I didn't deliver for a bunch of kids for Christmas. And that didn't sit right with me. In this world, in the world I'm in now, that plays. In the gym business, didn't play, right? It was hard for me to recoup that over time, right? So yeah, that's gotta know, and gotta trust. Create some automations where you can. I'd probably say, and I'm less familiar with what's being taught in the fitness business world right now. If every single person is not using ChatGPT to help themselves, they're doing themselves a disservice. You can take every email exchange that you've ever said and ask ChatGPT if your copy's good, right? What am I missing in this copy? How would you make this copy better? How would you make this how would you make this email that I wrote more emotional, right? Hey, can you read this entire book? Copy and paste an ebook of Dan Kennedy. I need you to read this entire Dan Kennedy book. Here are my products and services. Build me out a marketing campaign. Okay, well, what happens if somebody says this? You should say this. What happens if this? Well, what about, you can have this direct dialect with this thing that's looked at the entire internet. And then on top of it, you can upload the very specific information you want it to know. It can read that, know what it had, come up with an idea that's unique to you. And I think that for myself, like, if you're a young coach, put your marketing through it, put your training programs through it, ask it questions. Hey, I'm thinking that I need to do this, this, and this to get somebody to lose weight. What's the fastest way for somebody to lose? Hey, this doctor and this person and this thing all say this, right? So here's the recommendation. Try this. There's so much more of the automation of information that I think that's another way that you can clean all your systems up by having the use of AI as part of what you're doing. And that's new.
Nice.
That's new.
So, all right, one other thing I know I was really curious about is as your business with baseball lifestyle has evolved, how has your role evolved?
Whew. Yeah. That's a great question because it again, because we grew so fast this year, um, a year ago at this time, we had 8 employees. Today, when you take into account our seasonal employees that we have right now, I think we have 85. So, how has my role changed? I used to spend one of my superpowers, and again, this goes back to when I owned my gym, is I am great at coaching greatness out of people, inspiring my employees, inspiring people, getting them to want more for themselves. Uh, but also, I'm an autodidact and I can teach myself pretty much anything. So when I see that somebody who's a specialist is stuck, I dive into their stuff. And I used to be able to really pull performance out of someone. So I could hire a C player and I could make C players into A players in 18 to 24 months. And I now got the value of I'm not paying A player pricing, and this A player knows how to do it exactly the way we want. Today, I can't do that, right? There's people at this company that I say hi to, and I know their name. They know me. I know a very superficial amount of them, but it is hard for me to have that level of impact. So what that then shapes is how am I building the guardrails inside the business that my company is allowing that person that same level of the person ahead of them feels like they can educate them. The person ahead of them knows that this person's got potential. Let's cross train them in different departments, give them better opportunities. How do we have leadership groups and different stuff? And I still anybody in the entire company can come talk to me, right? Uh, 15 to 30 minutes on my schedule. And hey, can I talk to Bill? Hey, Bill, how do I invest? How do I do this? What do I do with this? We have a 401k price matching. What does that mean? Why should I take advantage of it? Like, I'm doing a lot more of that. Um, and then the second level is, for where we're at, it's doing things like this, like being on podcasts. I was on another podcast a couple weeks ago, Taylor Holiday, and Taylor, his brother was one of the founders of Quelo Rings, which everybody in the fitness industry knows, right? Because we all were like, hey, we lift barbells all the time. I need a rubber ring on my finger. He was a baseball player, played at Stanford. He now runs marketing for huge companies, everything else. Um, Being on his podcast, being on this, talking more and really being able to harness the story and what's going on and what it is. Because at some point in time, it's either we're going to sell this or I'm going to go public and all of the people out here, I want you to invest and buy at IPO. And why would you want to invest and how is, I gotta have people like me too. Right. So it's a very changed there. Outside of that, a lot of the same for me. I have never been a huge button pusher here. My title at the company is Chief Strategy Officer because one, a co-CEO situation is just not it. There's a lot of companies these days who are nah, one person should be it. Um, and Josh is better at dotting I's and crossing T's than I am. I'm better at seeing what's happening and making the strategy about what to do. So I spend a lot of time in different departments just hearing out what their problems are and then trying to help build systems and processes and where we need to go, what's going to happen, and a lot of meetings. So that's what's changed.
So to put a bow on this, and I think you kind of gave away the ending almost there. Like so, what's next for Bill for baseball lifestyle? What's coming up?
Yeah, I mean next year is big for us because we're going into retail at scale. We just opened our first store here on Long Island, Roosevelt Field Mall. It's the fifth busiest mall in the United States. Right out of the gate, that store is pacing to, do over $2 million a year out of a 1,200 square foot location. So, mall expansions, doing more things like that. We're doing some licensing things with some known brands. We have had a relationship with the MLB Players Association for a long time. Now we're going to be doing some stuff, potentially with the MLB Direct. It's just about taking all the things and just thinking bigger, thinking more outside the box, and what are some grander scale things. And then for myself, it's what are marketing initiatives and things that I haven't had to do, because what you're doing when you're smaller constantly changes. Right? Because I'm saying to all the people who are listening to this, hey, here's what you need to do to build $1 million of revenue pretty simply. Um, it's then the backtrack of, well, what's 10, what's 100, what's 250, what does $1 billion company have to do? And if we're the next Under Armour, uh, there's a lot of things that I'm going to need to know and change and get into. So the big things for me next year is we've got trucks that we're wrapping and are driving around cities. We've got street teams and things going out and doing stuff. We're doing TV commercials. We're doing bigger events. Um, and then leaning into more professional athlete stuff. Who are the right people to do things with? Influencer marketing. Who are some people for us to get into? So it's really just that. And then with BL, we have no idea. Right? Every time we try to think that we want to put a ceiling or a cap or an idea about where it's going to be, we destroy it and explode it, and it's completely different, which is amazing. And it's a testament to the team and the people and everybody who's here. But yeah, I mean, what I tell everybody, and this is the joke, is a Billy for Billy. Um, how do we get to $1 billion company? What would we need to do, and what are those things? And you know, in the next 36 to 60 months, we're going to have a shot at that. And then I don't know whether it's us, running it permanently, going public, doing something like that, selling it to somebody else who's good at scaling companies to tens of billions of dollars, because that's an entirely different monster. Um, don't know quite yet, but excited to find out.
Very cool. So, I mean, I think the requisite close is where can people find you?
Yeah, so if anybody wants to find me, at the Bill Rom on Twitter is the best place. That's the social media that me as a person I am the most active. Can send me a message directly through there. You can tweet at me. You can do anything else. I'm in the time of my career right now where I'm very giving of my time and information, because I've been behind closed doors for a while, and I'm starting to kind of come out of that. So if anybody wants to tweet an answer, a thing, hey, this, I'd be happy to, throw some texts back and forth.
Very cool. Well, hey, I appreciate this more than you know. This has been such a cool and out of the ordinary episode, because so many of the episodes that I do with guests are the Eric Cresseys of the world or whoever else that are neck deep in the coaching side of things. So to be able to take a longtime coach and see how he's taken a different direction is really, really awesome for me, and I'm sure it's going to be awesome for everybody else. So I appreciate it a bunch.
Yeah, no, and this is a big full circle moment for me too, right? Because I'm one of the people who sat in the crowd and listened to you and the team speak, and how am I going to grow my business and what's going on. So to be able to come on here and hopefully inspire some people and confirm some ideas, because a lot of the time it's not hearing something new, it's getting confirmation that the thing you already know is the right idea. So hopefully it helps somebody. And again, thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Thanks a bunch, and that's another episode of the Fitness Business School.